Thinking one book will do the trick? Well, think again. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Jonathan Milligan about how writing a series of books can elevate your brand and grow your business. Get ready to change your book strategy.
Are you an entrepreneur, small business owner, or consultant looking to boost your authority, influence, and impact? The Author Switch podcast with best-selling, award-winning author Carma Spence is your answer. Tune in for actionable advice, powerful strategies, and engaging interviews to turn on your author switch and take your business to the next dimension.
The Author Switch.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Switch podcast. My name is Carma Spence, and I help executive coaches, business leaders, and consultants write, publish, and market client-attracting books so that they can grow your business. Now, today, my special guest is Jonathan Milligan, who I've been following because I've learned a lot about what I do from him. He has a very interesting mind. So, Jonathan Milligan is an online business coach, author, and speaker dedicated to helping creative professionals turn their passion into a business. Over the past decade, Jonathan has been guiding people to build a portable, meaningful lifestyle business, allowing them to share their stories and messages with the world. As the author of Your Message Matters, Jonathan brings a blend of practical advice and personal insight to the table. Welcome to the podcast, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me, Carma. I'm excited. Two authors chatting, and hopefully we'll come out with some really good tidbits along the way.
Yes, wonderful. So, first of all, I wanted to say that the reason why I brought you on board is because you have come out with this 5-book series. I'm missing some of the books, but I've got 2 of them.
Mhm.
And I thought first we'd talk a little bit about the philosophy behind having a series of books, because I just came out with one of my own this year as well. So what made you decide I need to write a series book instead of just a single book?
So the book you mentioned, Your Message Matters, was a traditionally published book, and it was a great experience for me. I've always wanted to be a traditionally published author, but it was a process. It's an 18-month process, and there's a lot of things that happen between that. And I could never do what I've done with this self-published book series. If I were to do that in like a traditional sense, it would take me years to get to
Yeah.
5 books, as opposed to I'm almost 5 books in a little over 15, 16 months. So there's a lot of advantages to self-publishing. But really what kind of spurred me on about this was I was doing a little brainstorming on some goals a while back. It was early 2023. And I started writing out like what things leave a legacy. And I was just
Mhm.
jotting down anything, doesn't have to even be business related. And I was jotting down a few things and I realized there was only a handful of things. One of them that, interesting enough, were publishing books, because I love doing courses and membership sites, and there's a strategy for all that. I love doing coaching, but the thing that I believe can really create that legacy piece are books, because some of the most profound books that have changed my life, my business, my perspectives
Mhm.
are from people who are no longer with us. They've passed away, but their books, their message carries on. And I didn't want all that information tucked away in just inside of a course and membership. I wanted to get it out there and make a difference with people. So that's what spurred me on to, I'm going to do this book series.
Wow. Now, did you have like a strategy that basically once you had the idea that you wanted to do it, was there a plan or a strategy, or did you just jump right in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, there was some strategy to it. Part of the strategy is inside of my business, I've simplified my model. And so I have 3 levels of membership. The lowest level membership is for somebody just getting started. It's kind of step 1 and 2. In the mid-level membership, it's a little bit more advanced. Somebody who's beyond just setting up their website or figuring out what their message is. It's for people who are like, okay, how do I start making my first $1,000 online? How do I build my audience? And so that's for the kind of the mid level. And then for the top level are things like scaling. How do you scale your income as a solopreneur or as a small team? And also some of the strategies I use around monetizing my email list. I was teaching those essentials kind of in those different levels of membership. And I decided what I wanted to do from a strategy perspective was teach the what step by step in those books. And then the courses and the material will show you how.
Mm,
And each of those, if people opt in, and we could talk a little bit more about the strategy, but the essence of the strategy is I wanted to see recurring income from book royalties from the books, which we've seen now that we really ramped up the book series. So you got that kind of happening month by month, which every business wants that recurring revenue. So we got those book royalties coming in every month. And then I wanted to see people getting on my email list from that, which I offer a little mini course in each book. And then when they get on the mini course, there's a few little emails that invite them to that level of membership based on the book.
mhm.
And so we have people who are joining the recurring membership site. All of that is happening on autopilot. So there's a lot more strategy into it. But the thing that I did not realize until I really started getting into this is most businesses are paying Facebook ads to build their email list.
Right.
I actually get paid to build my list by having a book on Amazon. And
Yeah.
so I'm making book royalties and I'm seeing email subscribers, and it just starts to amplify the more books you get out there.
Exactly. And one thing I liked about your series is that although it's a series and they fit together, they also each stand alone.
Yes, that's super important because I think each book needs to have a clear outcome. What is the clear outcome or win for this book? And just like you treat a fiction book, it should both have a clear outcome. Did the
Mhm.
hero get what the hero wanted?
Right.
And also, it can be a series, which the story continues on.
Right. And so each book has its own outcome, but then the series of books, when they work together, creates yet another outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they kind of stack on each other. So,
Absolutely.
what's been interesting about the book series that I've been doing is it kind of progresses from the beginner stage to a little bit more advanced. And so somebody might say, I don't need the Discover Your Message book. I already know who my audience and I know my strengths and I know what I want to do. But to build your audience, yeah, I mean, I want a
Yeah.
bigger audience. I want a bigger email list. So that's going to resonate with a different segment of your
Right.
customers. And so I think that's the power too in a book series is you're able to appeal to different segments in your audience.
Now I noticed you have your books in Kindle and then you have them in physical. And I think some of them, or maybe all of them, are going to have audiobooks and some of them are going to have workbooks.
Yes. So all of them have Kindle, paperback. Almost all of them have hardcover, although I got to do the hardcover for the last one. They have all have audiobook, and then they all have workbooks. So I create workbooks for each of the books as well.
And what's the strategy behind doing all that work?
Yeah. It's honestly to dominate the niche, right? So the more it's out there, the more brand recognition, the more people see, and they like, I keep seeing this brand. And that's another thing is make your book series have a little bit of similarity. Now the colors can change, but like my fonts are the same. This has been an experience for me is I have had that happen from a customer side where it's like I keep seeing this guy or this gal's books. I want to start reading one. And I did that with one particular person back a few months ago. I ended up buying like all 8 of her books because I kept seeing them
Yeah.
everywhere. And then once I read one, I was like, wow, this is good. I'm going to read the next one and the next one and the next one. And so creating that read through and the binge reading, it also builds a lot of goodwill, no,
Yeah.
like, and trust. You probably find this to be true with the people that you work with is one of the powerful reasons for doing this is you have kind of already pre-sold people
Yeah.
before they ever buy anything else from you. Because if they've gained value and benefit from your book, then joining your membership or getting your coaching or buying your services or whatever it is you ultimately want from that, they're already pre-sold. And that's a lot easier of a customer to convert.
It also seems to me that having the same information in multiple formats, audio, workbook, regular book, it meets people where they are. Because some people may not want to read a book, but they'll go straight for the workbook. Some people may not want the book or the workbook, but want the audiobook. And, by having and yes, it's a little bit of extra work, but I think you have like a system that helps you make that go faster.
Yes, I think it's a super important. I think it comes from my background being as a high school teacher. And so I learned the kids learn different ways. And so I would do practical exercises. I would get them out of their seats, something more tactile. I would do different things, show a video and try to interact with them in different ways. And I think that's what this does too. And for example, audiobooks. My wife is huge reader of audiobooks. She doesn't read a lot of books, although she started to recently, but she consumes lots of audiobooks. And so she told me, "Hey, if you want me to read your books, you got to create the audiobook." So that's why I created the audiobooks.
I
That
mean, she's not your
is,
editor?
yeah. No, she's not my editor.
Ah,
But if she listens to the audiobook and finds an error, maybe. But for the most part, I think it just appeals to different personalities and styles. And that's what the workbook does it can kind of be a standalone. You can use it without the book, but it has the recommended reading. But it's
mm,
really like exercises and having people think through and write things out. I know I have been a big consumer of workbooks when I find them because it just helps me to like brainstorm and think and
yeah.
apply it. And I just really enjoy that aspect of it. So, and all of them can lead to obviously more income as well.
Absolutely. I mean, because
Yeah.
you get royalties from the book itself, and then if they lead into an actual client. Now, I have not picked up your workbooks yet. They're on my list. Are they the same size as this, or are they larger?
They are 8 by 10. I'll grab one.
Okay.
And I know people are listening, can't see it, but they're 8 by 10. So they're a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And I actually create these in Canva. So I
Right.
create the workbook in Canva. What I do with the workbook is I have like a summary of the chapter on one side, just one page. And then I have a little exercise. And then I have a journaling question. And then we go to the
Oh,
next chapter. And it's a little summary of the chapter, an exercise, and then a journal prompt. So
well, that's very simple to create.
yeah, super simple to create.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've experimented with Google's Notebook, but they create summaries like that. So,
Nice. I have not. But yeah, I mean, there are probably use cases for different AI tools that you give them your manuscript and say, "Hey, could you summarize
yeah.
this into a, 3 paragraph summary?" Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've used ChatGPT. I've like uploaded my book and had it help me come up with marketing plans or social media posts
Yes.
or webinars or whatever. I just say, here's the content, help me do something.
Yes. The other day I tried this out because I had this idea. In Canva, you can bulk create social media graphics.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I uploaded one of my books and I said, pull out 30 quotable quotes from my book. And it did put it in a spreadsheet, put that spreadsheet in Canva. And within a minute, I had 30 graphics that were all advertising my book from
Hmm.
quotes from my book. That would have
Right.
taken hours to do in the
Oh yeah.
past.
Because I've done that. I I did that many years ago with 57 Secrets for branding yourself online. I literally pulled them all myself. We only had chat a few years ago, but then again, maybe we weren't ready. We
Yes,
weren't ready for the AI revolution, right?
exactly.
Well, I'm going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into how you've been implementing these strategies with your books.
The future of entrepreneurial book writing has arrived. In an age where information moves at the speed of light and innovation is a business requirement, one book stands as the North Star for the authors of tomorrow. In You Can Make It to the Finish Line, Carma Spence decodes the mysteries of writing a book that markets your business, offering a blueprint to navigate the frontiers of writing, editing, and publishing. With accessible techniques and visionary insight, this guide propels you forward so that your expertise can transform into impact. Step into your future. Transform your vision into a legacy. You can make it to the finish line, where your author's journey meets the future. Available now on Amazon.
Hello, and welcome back to the Author Switch podcast. I am your host, Carma Spence, and I help executive coaches, business leaders, and consultants write, publish, and market client-attracting books that grow their businesses. And today I have as my special guest, Jonathan Milligan, who has written a series of books. And in the first half, we're talking more about the strategy behind why would you write a series of books and how might you do that? What I'd like to talk about now is how has he used those strategies we talked about to grow his business with his series? So tell us a little bit about this Your Message Matters series.
So the Your Message Matters series is a collection of steps of books. And what's crazy about this is I've been bitten by the bug, because now it's like I can't stop with new book ideas. It's like once you get started in something like this, you just see so much potential. But I've decided to kind of limit it to about 6 books in the series. So we're on book 5 now. And the goal of this is really marketing and getting this into the hands of more people. Amazon's one of the, I think, top 5 most visited sites on the internet. And so it creates a huge opportunity for us authors, because we can get our message out in front of people. And majority of people in every industry understand the value of books, and those value of books is not going away. And so it just creates a huge opportunity for you if you're struggling to get your message out. So that was kind of the primary reason, one of the primary reasons why I wanted to get my books out there, is it has long staying power. If you write the books correctly, evergreen, or as a self-published author, you can easily update your book. For me to try to update my Your Message Matters book that's traditionally published is a lot more difficult, but I can just go make a change and upload it. There's a lot of advantages to self-publishing for sure.
Absolutely. Now, since you started doing this, because I think you started this early on in 2024, have you noticed that each book gets better, worse, somewhere in between? What have you been seeing with your series?
So I've learned a lot of different things through the process, and some of it is by mistakes that you make. So when I published book 1, I did not automatically set up for pre-order book 2. That was a big mistake. I caught on to my mistake, and that made a huge difference, because people, as soon as they were finishing the book, they were ready for the next one.
Oh,
And so it's very easy. Most people don't know this, but it's very easy to set up a pre-order, because you just need the book cover. You need to put in some of that metadata of like categories and your description. You do not have to upload a manuscript. And
no.
so you can get something up for sale pretty quickly and start collecting sales. I saw that pick up speed. By the time I got to book, I would say 3, and I put book 4 pre-order sales up, it started really picking up. And you just had a sense of like, wow, there's a lot of potential here. People are starting to catch on to this. So I'd say one cool thing that I've seen. The other is just the rise in book royalties, the more books that you have out there. There was an article by Written Word Media that they put out a couple years ago that a lot of authors know about, but it was a study done on what's the most common thing with authors that are making $100,000 a year just on their book
Right.
royalties.
I read that.
Yeah, and the most common thing was they had 28 books in their catalog. That's a lot of books. But
Yes.
the other strategy that maybe we could talk about is, with this book series, I was determined to write shorter books, somewhere around 30,000 words. Although I don't try to write to a word count, I want it to be at least 30,000 words. And to give someone perspective on that, that's like half the size of my traditionally published book. I
Right.
had to, according to my contract, I had to deliver a 60,000 word manuscript. And so these books I'm able to get out quicker. They're shorter reads. People are enjoying the shorter reads. That's the other part of the strategy, is they
Yeah.
really like no fluff, get right to the point, give me the goods, make it practical. And you can focus on more niche topics when you're not trying to write the A to Z
Exactly.
guide in one book. So that's another
Exactly.
advantage.
Yeah, I've done a lot of writing about short books and how they're becoming more and more popular. And honestly, if you're gonna do just an ebook, it can be 10 pages.
Oh yeah.
But if it's gonna be a print book, I'm finding that at least 100 pages seems to be about the sweet spot. Now, I really liked your tip about having the pre-order available because that didn't occur to me. My goal at the beginning of the year was to write a book a month, and that kind of fell apart after about month 3.
Yeah.
And part of that is because time. It's really hard to put a quality book out in 30 days or less. You can, but you need to have no other distractions.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like
Or you're just going for a shorter word count, right?
exactly, exactly. And the other thing I noticed, and I don't know if this, I mean, my guess, I noticed that my sales dropped with each one. And I
Mm.
think it was because they were too close together that there was like buyer fatigue.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't try that, but I I could see that that could be a possibility if they're kind of too close to one another potentially.
Either
Interesting.
that or they were all waiting for the series to be done because Kindle will, like, bundle it and give them a discount.
Yes.
And that's another thing I thought was interesting. You said your series grew longer. I initially started off with a 5-book series, and by the time I got to the book 4, I realized that book 4 had everything I thought I was gonna put into book 5.
Hmm.
So I ended up stopping at 4.
Well, I think I initially had 7 or 8 books and I pulled it back. So even what and I think that's another good tip for people is even though you might have your certain number of books that you're going to have in the series, and again, we're talking nonfiction, it's okay to change some of that as long as it's not already up for pre-order because it may change over time and that's okay. And so I think I originally had one called Master Your Mindset and another one called Build Your Funnel, but ultimately it helped me because I had written the books, know where I'm trying, what is the next
Logical. Yeah.
yes. And so like the way I like to think about it is every problem you solve, there's a new problem
Mhm.
that comes about. So take my book series, when someone discovers their message, awesome. Now they're thinking, but how do I set up my branding online and get started? And
Yeah.
then when they read launch your platform, it solves the problem, but it immediately creates the next problem of I have a website, I have social media, I have a plan, but I don't have an audience. I need to build my
Right.
audience. And then once they build their audience, then they're like, okay, but how do I scale an income? I've got an email list now, but I don't know really how to make this thing full time. And so each problem that you solve for the reader can potentially create a new problem, and that new problem could be the next book.
Right, right, and that's the same way with building your products and your services, the whole thing that you want them to be interrelated in how they're solving problems, but creating gaps.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, did you notice that, like, do the workbooks help sell the books? Have you I mean, I know that Amazon doesn't give us that much data, but have you been able to piece together the data that, like, one version creates increase in another version?
So that has been a question I want to figure out. I think it's a little hard to solve just from sales data.
Yeah.
So you have to have feedback from customers or find out who's purchasing. I'd say the one kind of drawback on Amazon is you can't have your workbook kind of sitting there with all the other formats. It's like its
Yeah.
own separate SKU on Amazon. And so people don't know it's there unless, and I saw this actually just yesterday, where you've probably seen this on Amazon, where when you're scrolling down, it says, "Hey, people who bought this also bought that." And for the
Yeah.
first time, I saw it say, "Hey, people who bought Validate Your Offer book also buy the Validate Your Offer workbook." And
Sweet.
then it had like, "Here's the cost to buy both of these." And I wish they had more like that because I think that's the big challenge
Yeah.
is it's a whole separate SKU. But the other reason behind the workbook for me was eventually what I want to do once I complete the series is I want to use the workbook in a free book funnel to get people into my products.
Right.
So essentially it's, hey, I'll send you these 4 workbooks or these 2 workbooks if you join my membership. I'll ship you these books, and the membership has the courses that kind of go along with the
Right.
workbook. So that's kind of the other strategy. My original strategy wasn't just to make book royalties on the workbook, it was to have workbooks for my memberships and
Right.
coaching. Yeah.
That's very, very smart. It's very smart. I love being able to send people something physical when they join something online. There's that wow factor, especially if they're not expecting it.
The other thing is people don't throw away books and workbooks.
No, they don't.
And so if you can get your branding inside of their home,
Right.
it's going to be there. I mean, maybe they're not ready right now to go on to
Yeah.
your products or your services or your coaching or whatever it is that you sell. But maybe 3 months from now, they're going to go, oh, you know what? There's that book or that workbook. I bought it a while back. I need to just take some time and go through it. And then they go through it. And then once they go through it, now they're ready to get into your products and
Right.
services. So sometimes it's not always immediate, but putting
Right.
those books in people's homes can make a huge difference because it's marketing for you in their homes 24/7.
Yeah. And it just, like a thought just occurred to me. They don't throw the books away, but they may give them to a thrift store.
Yes.
Now you've reached yet another audience who like
Yep.
picks up your book randomly, and now they may join your list and become a client, and they bought your book for $1 somewhere.
Absolutely. The funniest thing I saw after my first traditionally published book was out was going on eBay and seeing my books for sale on eBay. And like, here they are. They're just recycling to a new person. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I hope
totally okay with that.
somebody else gets it, right?
Yeah, because
But
it's not about the royalties. If it was only about the royalties, that might be a problem, but
yes,
you can't approach your books and have it be about the royalties. You really
yes.
can't.
The royalties is a plus. It's a good thing to have. It's part of the business, but that wasn't my main motivation in writing the
Right.
books. Yeah.
So I think we've probably convinced people that a series is a good idea, but probably the biggest problem that's gonna come up in their head is, "Oh my gosh, that's a lot. How do you fit that in? How do you make that work?"
Yes. So that was a big question when I committed to publishing one of these books. And again, there's somewhere between 30 and 40,000 words. So they're probably 125 pages to 200 pages. And I had to have a strategy because I have lots of other things going on too. And so how am I going to carve out time to do this, right? And I think it's really important that you remember it depends, first of all, if you're wanting to buy into a book series and you want to do this yourself, you want to self publish, you've got to set up some rules to help you stay with your progress you want to make.
Mhm,
So I had to think differently than I did with my traditionally published book, which went through like 6 rounds of edits. It went to 2 different editors, a developmental editor, and then a copy editor. And it's just like this whole process. I had to streamline that because I just did not have the bandwidth or the time or maybe even wanted to invest the money in all that. So the first thing is set up some simple rules to help you to make life easier. And so for me, I created a book cover that was going to be very close to all of my book covers once I
mhm.
created the template. And then I would use the same font, but I would switch the color, maybe switch the icon. Everything else was staying the same. So that made that part easier. When it came to the writing process, I had to decide what am I going to do to keep this moving forward. And so I write the book, the draft, and then I use Grammarly to help me with the grammar. I like to put it into the Hemingway editor app
Mhm.
because that helps me find those complex sentences and make them simplified. And then I use a tool to just check for any plagiarism. I want to make sure I'm good there. I would also, this is another little pro tip, I actually record the audiobook. My goal is to record the audiobook before it actually publishes so that I can catch any errors too. Because if you actually read your book sentence by sentence,
Oh, yeah.
you're going to catch something that's not right. So it's just another level of editing, but I was also creating a new format and a new income stream off of that editing because it was actually recording the audiobook.
Right.
So those are the things for me that help me stay streamlined. The other thing is You just got to carve out time. You have to find that space of deep work that you're going to dedicate to this. And it's not always easy. It can be challenging. Those are some tips. I would say set up some rules to help give you guidelines and create a process.
Yeah. I like the idea of the standardized. I mean, I did the same thing with my series as I had a basic and I just changed out maybe this because of the length of the titles were different. That might change the size, but the image was different, but the colors were all the same. The format was all the same. It made life so much easier. Plus, I could pre-market it because I could put it in like a little fan on my website, say, these are the books.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have on my Facebook profile cover the book covers of all 6 books, even though 5's half written and 6 isn't. So
Right.
it's all out there. And I would say the next level of editing, if you have the ability, is to let some other people read it ahead of time. Your
Mhm.
advanced reader copies or book launch team, I encourage them. I give them a copy of the book and I say, hey, it's not published yet. It's going to be published in 3 weeks. But if you come across an error, please let me know. Like, you're not offending me. I've tried my best to edit this and I will make those corrections. And so you also have that group editing that can help you as well. And so, yeah, that's the process.
Yeah. Now this episode is focused on series, but there are like we could do an entire episode on audiobooks. We could do an entire episode on launch teams because those are all things you need to juggle when you're thinking about the marketing part. But we're gonna stick to just series right now. Is there anything I haven't asked you about writing a book series that you would like to share?
The one thing that I think might be valuable is I came to this realization in book 2 that I needed to have a formula to help me with actually writing the books.
Mm,
And it made me think about like Hallmark, right? A lot of people love those Hallmark movies and they're the same plot process,
yes, they
but
are.
insert new actor, scene, but we keep watching them, right? Because it's a
Right.
proven formula. And so what I use with my writing my book chapters is just a simple 5-step process. First of all, it's pull. So what's the hook to draw them in? You need to always be drawing in your reader every chapter. So I start with a story, either a personal story or story from history or some kind of story to start to set up the chapter. Then it's the problem. What do most people do here with this topic that doesn't work? Then I get to the paradigm, which is what should they do instead? And that gets them excited. And then you lay out the plan, which is your 3 to 7 steps or habits or whatever that is, the heart of the chapter. And then I have the practice at the end, which is like little exercise or takeaways. And so I approached every chapter that way. And when I discovered that in book 2, then it made the writing of the chapters easier because
Yeah.
I just asked myself those questions. What's the pull to draw somebody in? What's the problem for this chapter? What's the paradigm shift they need to take? What's the plan to help them do this thing? And then what's the practice? And I just would repeat that every single chapter.
And it gives your entire series a rhythm.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always fun chatting with another successful book author like yourself. You've got lots of books out there and
I do.
doing a lot of great things, and it's just fun to have that conversation.
It is. Thank you. This is the end of today's episode of The Author Switch. I hope you enjoyed it and found some value. I will see you next week. This is Carma Spence saying ciao for now. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Author Switch podcast. If you enjoyed today's show and want to support its mission, here's how to help. First, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your engagement helps my channel grow and reach more aspiring and established authors. Your ratings and reviews are invaluable. They help me reach more listeners and continue delivering top-notch content. To catch up on past episodes, including those no longer available on podcast platforms, visit authorswitch.com/episodes. There, you can choose to watch or listen to your favorite episodes at your convenience. If you'd like to show additional support, consider dropping a tip in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com patreon.com/Carma Spence. Your contributions help keep the podcast running and are greatly appreciated. Thank you for being a part of the Author Switch community. Until next time, keep writing.